Hello and welcome to the Street Crime UK YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Today we're taking a look at Her Majesty's Prison and Young Offenders Institution, Forest Bank. Forest Bank is a Category B men's private prison in the Agecroft area of Pendlebury in Salford near Manchester, England. The prison is operated by Sodexo Justice Services. Forest Bank Prison was constructed on the site of the former Agecroft Power Station. The 25-year design, construct, manage and finance or DCMF contract was won by KLAX, formerly UKDS, in 1997, and it opened in January 2000. In November 2002, a report from Her Majesty's Chief Inspector of Prisons praised Forest Bank for its staff-prisoner relations, management structure, increased staffing levels and levels of association between inmates. However, the report also noted that many of the prison staff at Forest Bank lacked experience, and there was insufficient purposeful activity with fewer than half of the prisoners engaged in meaningful work or education. In 2004, it emerged that a prison officer at Forest Bank had been caught trying to sell heroin to inmates. The officer was caught with 147 wraps of the drug hidden inside his shoes when he started his shift. The officer was jailed for the offence. In March 2005, an inmate escaped from Forest Bank whilst being taken to hospital in a taxi. The prisoner was handcuffed to two prison officers as they travelled from the prison to the nearby Hope Hospital, when the taxi was stopped by two men who threatened the guards with a gun, forcing them to let the inmate free. In December of the same year, the prison was severely criticised by the Chief Inspector of Prisons for high levels of violence and drug taking amongst inmates. The inspection found that in 1 month alone, more than 2 kilograms of cannabis, 60 grams of heroin, and 4.6 grams of cocaine were found at Forest Bank, and 40% of the compulsory drug tests were positive. The report also found a significant deterioration in safety for staff and inmates at the prison with routine intimidation of staff, prisoner assault on other prisoners running at 25 a month, and staff turnover of 25% a year. There had also been 2,500 prisoner discipline hearings in 6 months. In February 2006, another inmate escaped from Forest Bank whilst visiting hospital. The prisoner managed to escape from 2 prison guards and fled from the Manchester Royal Infirmary wearing only a surgical gown. In May 2010, another inmate, Michael O'Donnell, escaped from Forest Bank. The inmate cut off a section of his own ear in order to regain release from the facility in an ambulance. The ambulance was then stopped on Agecroft Road, or A6044, by a gang of armed men who released Mr. O'Donnell and made off. Mr. O'Donnell was recaptured on the 28th of May 2010. He was sentenced to 9.5 years on the 29th of May 2010 and was sent to Her Majesty's Prison Strangeways. He was found hanged in his cell on Wednesday the 23rd of June 2010. In November 2010, Her Majesty's Chief Inspector of Prisons, Nick Hardwick, noted in his report on the prison that some young inmates had been tied up in their bed linen and beaten by other prisoners. The report also acknowledged that in other matters there were many signs of improvements. On the 10th of February 2011, former Forest Bank prison nurse Leanne Cartledge, 23, was sentenced to 4 months in prison for taking a mobile phone into the prison to give to Michael O'Donnell, with whom she was in a relationship, and which he used to help his escape. In 2011, it emerged that 3 former members of staff at Forest Bank successfully sued KLAX for unfair dismissal and their treatment by the serving Deputy Director of the prison. Also in 2011, KLAX changed their name for the second time, becoming known as Sodexo Justice Services. A 2013 report from the Chief Inspector of Prisons noted that there was a need for more work, education and training to be made available, with over 40% of prisoners locked up doing nothing during the working day. Since the inspection in 2010, there had been some deterioration in the quality of activity and learning and skills provided. Her Majesty's Prison Forest Bank is a Category B local prison, although the majority of the inmates are Category C. The term local means that this prison holds more people on remand to the local courts as well as sentenced prisoners. Adult inmates at Forest Bank come from the courts at Wigan, Leigh, Bolton and Bury. Young offenders come from courts at Manchester, Oldham, Stockport, Trafford, Tameside, Rochdale and High Peak. The prison is divided into 8 wings, A to H, a healthcare unit and a care separation unit. Accommodation at the prison consists mostly of single cells with some double cells. All the cells are designed to be safer, having almost no ligature points due to the fact that modularisation was being used in the method of construction. Activities in the prison include production workshops, training workshops and vocational training courses in motor mechanics, industrial cleaning, catering and welding. There is a visits hall at Forest Bank with facilities including a WRVS-run canteen. On the 29th of January 2017, a prisoner was found dead in his cell after a suspected drug overdose. The inmate is believed to have taken the potent synthetic drug Spice before becoming ill. The prison opened in 2000 under a 25-year Private Finance Initiative, or PFI, contract to provide 800 places as a Category B local prison. Spaces gradually increased to 1,160 before a 264-place extension was opened in November 2009. Following a reduction in prisoner places, the establishment now holds 1,364 remand and sentenced adult males, and remanded young adults 18 to 21-year-old. Wings A to F are the original prison, and G to H are the new building added in 2009. The wings hold the following: A1 young adults, A2, B1, B2 and C1 are general, C2, D1 and D2 are vulnerable prisoners, E1 is the first night induction wing, and E2, F1 and F2 are general. G1 is a recovery wing, G2 is resettlement, H1 is a first night ISMS unit, H2 is ISMS motivational unit, healthcare and inpatients, it's only 19 beds. In healthcare, the prison has a 20-bed inpatient facility incorporating 2 4-bed wards and a 2-bed observation suite. The GP service is provided by Cimarron, a GP agency, and the healthcare team are employed by Sodexo with a 70-30 split between the general and psychiatric nurses. There is also a substance misuse, a range of services offered to support and assist prisoners with substance misuse issues. Education at the prison is unsurprisingly run by Sodexo. There are over 200 jobs available at the workshops and 180 education places. Courses offered in education focus on the basic education such as numeracy and literacy. It is possible to acquire nationally recognised qualifications in food preparation and cooking, RIPH Foundation Food Hygiene, and a BICS British Institute of Cleaning Service, HACCP Foundation Certificate, Skills for Life, and Competency in Silver Service Techniques. The prison was given an inspection in May 2019, and the full report can be read at the Ministry of Justice website. In the latest report, inspectors said that Forest Bank is a Category B local prison in Salford, with an operational capacity of 1,460. Soon to be designated a reception prison, Forest Bank's main function is to serve the local courts and receive newly remanded or newly convicted prisoners from the community. As such, the prison holds the full range and type of prisoners with all the risks and challenges it implies. Opening in 2000, the prison is relatively modern and has for the last 19 years been managed by the private operator Sodexo. Forest Bank was the last inspected in 2016 when we found a well-led, competent and confident prison that was ensuring reasonably good or better outcomes against all 4 of our healthy prison tests. Reception and induction arrangements were adequate and functional, although undermined by some tardy processes. Technology that had been acquired to improve security on reception was underused, and the whole early days experience was something of a missed opportunity, which would have been benefited from more management attention and grit. A third of prisoners told us they felt unsafe, a situation which was even worse among vulnerable prisoners, where there was a finding of 52%. Violence had more than doubled since our last inspection in 2016, and much of it was serious. Structures were also in place to analyse and combat the problem, and there were interventions to confront perpetrators, but actions were not always followed up to a conclusion, and low-level antisocial behaviour was not addressed sufficiently. There needed to be greater focus on coordination to address violence, by, for example, incentivising good behaviour and consistently holding to account those who behave poorly. Use of force was more prevalent, and at a level now comparable with similar prisons. Incidents were properly recorded in documentation, although oversight was lacklustre and limited use was made of body-worn camera footage. Use of segregation had also risen, and it was now too comparable to similar prisons. Cellular accommodation in the segregation unit required improvement, as did the very basic regime and reintegration arrangements. Security generally was applied proportionately, and we identified the management and use of intelligence as a strength of the establishment. Close working relationships with local police and robust staff anti-corruption arrangements were also in place. Many prisoners suggested to us that access to drugs was comparatively easy, although while still too high, positive mandatory drug tests of about 15% was lower than at most similar prisons. Self-harm had increased significantly since we last inspected, and was much higher than we expected to see. There had also sadly been one self-inflicted death. The prison had access to good data concerning the problem of self-harm, and recommendations made by the Prison and Probation Ombudsman, who investigated the death, were being implemented. Relationships between staff and prisoners were respectful and polite. However, we were concerned that staff, many of whom were very inexperienced, did not assert sufficient authority when supervising prisoners, with the danger that some prison groups were able to take advantage. Most prisoners were positive about most aspects of daily life at Forest Bank. For example, the food and good access to the shop and accommodation was generally clean and bright. However, 60% of cells were doubled up and therefore overcrowded, and much furniture and cell equipment was damaged or missing. We also saw some cells with broken windows, and there was some evidence of delays in responding to cell call bells. Diversity and equality was promoted reasonably well through a comprehensive action plan and helpful consultation, including innovative one-to-one surgeries for prisoners with protected characteristics. Health services had improved since the last inspection, although more improvements were still needed to make the inpatient facility a fully therapeutic environment. Time out of cell was better than we often see, and the daily routine, including access to evening association, was reliable, although nearly half the population was locked up during the working day. There were sufficient places in work and education for all, and attendance, if not punctuality, were good. We were not confident, however, that allocation to some wing roles was always equitable or fair. Our colleagues in Ofsted judged that the overall effectiveness of education, skills and work as good, a not insignificant achievement in a local prison. Assessment or OA-SYS systems and sentence management were reasonably good, and public protection arrangements robust, with the prison's whole approach to resettlement supported by a strong community link. Support for family ties and engagement was similarly very positive. Forest Bank continued to be a reasonably well-ordered and settled prison, delivering a generally good outcome. Prisoners could, for example, access a better regime than we normally see for this type of prison. Rehabilitation and resettlement work was consistently a strength. Overall, this is an encouraging report, although we do identify more work to do in safety and providing support to staff. We left the prison with a number of recommendations which we hope will assist in the process of improvement. Now, we're going to look at 2 arrested amid police investigations into a prison throwover at Manchester. Parcels launched over prison walls often contain drugs, mobile phones and knives, detectives say. Police have seized 2 parcels filled with suspected contraband and arrested 2 men aged 33 and 19 on suspicion of conspiracy to convey articles into prison. Dawn raids were carried out at 2 addresses in Salford on Friday, according to Greater Manchester Police, with specialist sniffer dogs deployed in subsequent searches. Officers said the warrants they used related to an operation carried out by the force's new Challenger prison team as part of a wider investigation into links between organised crime groups and the 4 prisons within Greater Manchester: Forest Bank, Buckley Hall, Hindley and Manchester. Detectives said that they believed the parcels were ready to be thrown over the walls at Forest Bank in Agecroft, Salford. GMP also offers that on Thursday night, coordinated searches were carried out inside Forest Bank by prison officers, leading to a number of mobile phones being seized, which the force said initial intelligence suggested were linked to an ongoing investigation. Today's activity has resulted in 2 arrests and a number of significant seizures, which will be forensically examined as part of this investigation, Detective Inspector Jack Murphy said. The new Challenger prison team are dedicated to relentlessly pursuing any individuals involved in these throwovers, both inside and outside the Greater Manchester prison system. He added that the parcels often contain drugs, mobile phones, steroids, tobacco, paper soaked in spice, cannabis and even knives, and sometimes that these items are sold for 5 times their standard price inside of prisons, and that they can make the prison very unsafe. It can promote gang culture and can lead to further crimes being committed by inmates, while also posing a serious risk to the safety of prison staff and prisoners, and lining the pockets of organised crime groups, D.I. Murphy said. David Smart, the Deputy Director at Forest Bank, said that organised crime has a negative effect on the safety and security of the staff and residents at Forest Bank, and we are proud of our partnership with the Challenger prison team in making our prison and community we serve a safer place to be. Now we're going to look at 2 prison officers who were attacked by a gang of masked men armed with baseball bats after finishing work at a prison in Salford, Manchester. One officer was hit on the arm and another managed to jump out of the way as the gang crashed a car through a barrier and attempted to mow them down. The men also smashed windows of the visitor centre at HMP Forest Bank in Agecroft before fleeing. The incident happened recently, but only now the details have emerged. The prison understands that one line of inquiry is that the attack may have been revenge for an inmate being moved out of the prison after allegedly assaulting a female prison officer who was knocked out. A spokesperson for HMP Forest Bank said that an incident occurred outside Forest Bank on Tuesday the 20th of July where 2 prison officers were attacked by masked men. A member of staff did sustain an injury from the attack, and the incident has been referred to the Greater Manchester Police. In a statement, Greater Manchester Police said, "Police were called shortly after 8 PM on Tuesday the 20th of July 2021 to reports of a disturbance at HMP Forest Bank. Inquiries have established that 3 people arrived at the prison in a dark coloured car before alighting the vehicle and attacking a staff member with a baseball bat. The offenders then attempted to run over a second member of staff using the car before driving through the barrier and causing extensive damage to the visitors' entrance. The member of staff who was attacked with the baseball bat was taken to hospital with an arm injury. He has since been discharged. No arrests have been made and inquiries remain ongoing. So what are your thoughts on Her Majesty's Prison and Young Offenders Institution Forest Bank? Are there any stories we missed? Please let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay safe.